Hello, welcome back to our channel. I'm Tom Quigley, bringing the latest tips, tricks and techniques for your contemporary painting and drawing needs. So we're back with another video, which I'm really excited to show you. It's a new style of video. Basically, I wanted to bring other artists on the channel, kind of show you what my inspirations are, but also, as we cannot go to any exhibitions at the moment, we can't immerse ourselves in the artistic world. I thought I'd try and do that through the power of YouTube. So in this video, I get to meet the mural and street artist, Qubek. I'm so excited to meet this artist. This artist has inspired me throughout my time walking through the streets of Manchester, and one day I hope to put his own artwork into one of my paintings. So sit back, get a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and enjoy the video. See you later.
So, anyway, nice to meet you. Qubek, where's it come from then?
It doesn't really mean anything, and it's not really from anywhere. Basically, like I've been a graffiti artist for many years. I've always had a tag or a pseudonym, and I just got to the point probably about 6 years ago, maybe, where I wanted to change what I wrote, and I wanted. It's all about aesthetics. I wanted to write a name because essentially my passion is graffiti lettering. You know, I paint all sorts of things, birds and all sorts. But one of my main passions is graffiti lettering. You're looking at graffiti. It's all about pushing the aesthetics or the style of your word, just like calligraphy or anything like that. Different types of calligraphy. You know, I just wanted to find a tag that had an interesting shape to it, and one of the letters that most people don't use in graffiti is a Q, because you can't really do much with it. You know, it's kind of a standard shape. It's quite big and bulky. Doesn't really do much. Whereas like S's, T's, the letters are going all over the place. You can bend them all over the place, actually create different styles and
you
different
can join
flows.
them to another letter and stuff as well, can't you? So
exactly, some letters join better than others, as in, you know, it all goes back to handwriting basically. Anyway, I just wanted to write something that had a cue at the start, and then it was a case of what else do I put after that. And my graffiti style, my lettering style is kind of quite futuristic looking. It's nothing new. You know, a lot of people do the same kind of thing, but we all try and kind of, you know, make ours individual
and unique.
A lot of people will recognize the way that I put letters together and the shape of my word or words because of me pushing that ideal, basically.
Is it because it's quite symmetrical, I suppose? It kind of starts off quite small and then builds up.
I think that's just the way my brain works. So also quite rigid, you know, there's not much crazy flow to them, and that's just how I like to see and what I like to produce. So I remember kind of like wanting it to sound slightly kind of futuristic maybe, or, you know, like the word just be quite abstract in itself. So the word kind of creates its own kind of look and feel, you know what I mean? Like, people kind of, when they say that word, it's like, oh, that immediately takes you somewhere, or it makes you think that it's going to look, you know, a specific way. Whether that makes sense or actually works, I don't know. But for me, it was all about creating some kind of futuristic, strange sounding word, and one that started with a Q. So
there you go. Qubek.
When I was a kid, one of my favorite games on the Nintendo was what was it called? Qbert, Qubert. And it was like this little weird alien with a big nose, and you kind of went around grabbing balls. So I started writing Qbert, but then really quickly realized that there was a DJ called DJ Qbert, who was quite a famous DJ. Like, well, I can't really use the same name as someone else that's already used it in that capacity. You know what I mean? It does seem like you completely. So then I tried to kind of like change the letters around a little bit and still make a word that sounded like it meant something, but you know, actually flowed quite nicely. So I just took a few letters out, got rid of the T, added the K, Qubek, and I just thought that sounds pretty cool. But then I realised there was a guy in Copenhagen that paints trains that wrote Qubek, and I was like, you know, I thought this word is going to be unique. No one's ever going to thought about it.
It just proves in the art world nothing is unique, is it? Sometimes.
I was going to say, yeah, it's the same in the graffiti world. Nothing's really. There's only a few people pushing, you know, really kind of new graffiti styles. So anyway, yeah, like I said, I realised that this guy, he was using that, and all I did was put a U in between the Q and the B. So essentially I've got the same name, but not the same spelling. Because I'd put that much work and effort into trying to kind of like make this what I wanted it to be. That I just thought I can't just throw it away and restart again.
No,
you know?
Keep it.
And as you say, you know, I realise that there's people that write the same thing over and over again. You know, there's people that used to write graffiti in New York, and people these days using the same names. You know, even really famous graffiti artists from New York. Some people will still take that name now, and that's pretty toy, as we say in the graffiti world. You shouldn't be using a name that's really famous. You know, it's just me trying to kind of find a new direction, a new shape and formula, and a new style within that word. You know, like initially I kind of thought that there's not much to talk about as far as what my tag means and what it says, but
it is really, Just moving on from that. Obviously, you discussed like New York, where graffiti started, and that's one of my favourite places on Manhattan. And going on the subways, and obviously the graffiti's changed, and there's hardly any graffiti of, you know, people that used to go on the trains, spray up what they wanted to do, got off, and obviously that train would travel, and everybody else would get to know what that tag is, if you know what I mean. Now, if you go to New York, you'll see your type of street art on the side of big buildings. Is that where it started then, from a kid, like just interested in that kind of hip hop culture, or kind of?
Yeah, I wouldn't say interested in hip hop culture, but certainly just interested in graffiti as a phenomenon.
Graffiti as a whole,
Yeah, I remember like I lived in Hounslow in West Middlesex, and that's where I first noticed graffiti, especially like in London. It was massive in the late 80s, well, in the 80s. You know, in general, and still all the way through the 90s and now. But I just remember seeing it as a kid and just thinking that's cool. You know what I mean? I want to try that out. I suppose it was in some marketing by that point on TV. There was already a few shows kind of, you know, like made about it, which I probably didn't see. In general, I think it was just seeing it on the streets and on the train tracks as well, going from Hounslow to London to the city centre. I remember seeing just piece after piece after piece next to the train, you know, like as you're going past, all different colours, shapes and patterns and stuff like that. And obviously as a child, like, that is really interesting, you know, like that's why it's primarily a youth art form, because it really does sell itself to young people, you know. It's rebellious, it's a bit naughty, you know, it's got everything wrapped into one, basically. You're being really creative as well, you know. People think the graffiti artists are all thugs and gang members, but essentially most graffiti artists just sit in their bedroom, draw and then go out and paint, and then go back home, you know what I mean? It's not.
I remember when I was at school, I started doing a couple of tags. I didn't really take it any further. One was called K's and one was called Phase. I remember the painting pens.
Tags.
I just love the K, you know, like when it backs on itself, and then the arrow on the E and stuff like that. But I remember seeing, I think the ones that I stuck in my mind when I was younger, I think it was like the Phantom Menace, which was a tag. It wasn't kind of street art, and Dusk. I think that was all the way around Manchester. I kind of remember seeing those two tags. But,
Yeah, I was going to say my dad used to live in Davyhulme, so I used to see that tag quite a lot. And in fact, I think we both know who that is. So yeah, like that it was put up a lot. I saw a news article last week about the Phantom Menace. It was a crew, TPM. And, you know, like that Dusk is one of the people that really influenced me, because his tag was really good. You know, I'd say it was, you know, like an italic handwriting kind of tag, but with a graffiti twist to it, you know. And that was one of the things when I used to come from Offerton in Stockport, where I used to live, up to see my dad in my early teens. You know, that's when I was seeing proper graffiti, because I was coming into the inner city and actually seeing, you know, the graffiti that that was good, basically.
I was saying graffiti does that really in the city areas or just run down areas. It brightens up the place, doesn't it? It makes it look more aesthetically pleasing to the eye, and cheers everybody up, I think.
I suppose if it's done well, like, more commissioned pieces and actual, pieces that people have done where they put more than, 10 minutes of work into it, then it can make places look really nice and interesting and colourful. But as you know, it's not all for, not everyone's into it. Some people really don't like the style and the aesthetic of it. But that's when street art comes into play, and that's why people employ street artists a lot of the time, or not just street artists, but people like muralists in general. People that don't just paint letters or what you essentially call graffiti, people that paint like characters, people and birds and things like that.
They don't see it as graffiti then, do they? Instantly, they see it as a
graffiti essentially means the illegal application of the art form. So if you're not doing it illegally, it shouldn't be called graffiti. But graffiti is, as an aesthetic, you could say, well, you could do graffiti legally, like letters and stuff like that, and say, well, that's graffiti because it looks like graffiti. But essentially, if it's not been done without permission, if it's been done legally, then it can't be called graffiti at all. It could just look like it. That's why it's important to sometimes actually consult the local people or do a project, like with local people to find a design that actually sits nicely in the area that it is, But then again, it's really cool to do something completely different and not consult anyone, do what you want to do, and then let people, judge it for what it is, as long as it's not really obscene, it should be kind of okay for anyone to paint what they want, where they want, with permission, or if you're not bothered about that, without permission, But,
I know. So you've done many, street art pieces. Have you got any that sticks out at all in your mind that is one of your favourites, or maybe a pinnacle when it started, getting a little bit more serious, or
the Manchester Beat one that I did after the arena attack is the one that sticks out the most to me. That's one that the Manchester Evening News asked me to do with the Love Heart with the MCR in the middle of it.
Near the coffee pot. Oldham Road.
Had the bees that represented the people that passed away, didn't it? So that's the obvious one, because that had emotion and real impact added to it, and it was. It actually meant something to people.
It means something for the people in Manchester.
I was asked to do it. I did have the idea to do something, and that's why I did those two little ones, because I just wanted to put something positive out there. And obviously, that's just all off your own back, isn't it? As artists go, we always want to reflect what's happening, and we want to do something sometimes that is positive, that reflects issues that happen in the world. You're just trying to do something that is nice for people, basically, that says something. But that piece, that big one, is the obvious one. There's loads that I've done that that no one's probably seen, or people that haven't really taken much notice of, that I love as well. As I said before, some of my graffiti lettering pieces are some of the things that I'm most proud of, because they're the things that I work on the most to stylistically to actually to get to a result that I'm really happy with. But I
saw the recent one near Manchester United, just in Old Trafford. Just where the old petrol station used to be with the borders up. That was quite a cool piece, wasn't it?
The one with the space background.
I really like that one.
That area is quite interesting. There's 3 hoardings around there. I painted all of them so far. And if you go there, it is like an outdoor art gallery. You know what I mean? Like for the public, you don't have to go and pay for it. You can just go and actually walk around. You could probably spend about an hour there and look at the artwork. And if you think about it, that's really interesting. For anyone to just seek that out, to have that area. It's almost like like the bohemian part of Old Trafford or whatever. There's some people call it, because you're actually being able to see artwork that is being produced free of charge for the love of it. It's totally transforming an area, as in the hoardings, because before we painted them, they were just full of graffiti, the illegal stuff, which most people don't like. And we've just got there and almost done community service. You know, we're making that place look interesting. Whether it's always received well is another thing, but that's art. Once again, it's subjective. But yeah, you know, it's really interesting that's what could happen if it's allowed to happen. You know.
Yeah, I think arts in general, or music, or anything creative, in a time like we are in at the moment, obviously we're all in lockdown, but those are the kind of things that become important, don't they? People latch onto them, those things, because they actually have some meaning towards them, or they just give an element of, I don't know, escapism. You know, they're the meaningful things rather than the other bits and bobs that we do day to day. So.
Definitely. Well, this is it. You know, like, as I said before, it's always been important for artists to reflect what's going on, isn't it? You know, and you know, like if you look at it in the moment, you've got the media being quite negative. Well, not negative, but you know, it's all kind of you know, like they're looking at a lot of you know, pretty horrible stuff, and when you kind of see through that, there's most of the positive stuff is creative. You know, people online doing, you know, like acting out situations or being funny, painting, creating. You know, like it's really important part of human nature, and to suppress it, like maybe the government have with, you know, like with school programs and stuff like that, isn't always great, because it's at times like this that you realize how important creativity is to your mental health, probably mainly, but you know, just to keep people's spirits kind of alive, and just for something else to look at and actually focus on. You know, it's really nice to see people doing things that are being spread around, and that are, you know, that are creating smiles and something to distract people from how horrible, you know, the situation is, basically.
How can people kind of contact you? Obviously, I've been on Facebook. You've got a page, Mural Life. Is that your own one? That one.
Well, that's that's my business page.
I'll put a link up in the description for that.
Yeah, the same on Instagram, mural_life, and then this is where it all gets a bit weird. You know, I've got my Qubek Manchester Instagram page. And I sometimes like to differentiate, you know, both of them. Like I like to split them up, because the Mural Life thing is all about corporate murals and murals for everybody, basically. Whereas my Qubek page is my artwork that I like to put out, that, you know, that is maybe not always as accessible for some people, that some people might not understand. It's my obsession, basically, you know, like the things that I like to paint, which I don't care if anyone else likes or not. You know, it's I might want to paint something, and it's not always for everyone else, but if you like it, then that's great, you know, and that's why people follow it, because they do. But I don't always go out to just impress people, or to do something that's going to be shared online, or that is something that has anything to do with any issues in the world, you know. Like
I think your artwork will stand alone in higher regard the more you do that. I think, you know, the more you know, the more that you show passion in what you want, other people will naturally just latch onto that. Myself, I do things that are quite mundane, kind of, you know, you walk past them and you wouldn't care what they are. You just might see an element of beauty in that, and that's what I feel. That's what I want to do. If I wanted to go and take pictures of, you know, rolling hills,
I don't really get much time to paint for myself these days and do what I want to do, because it's mainly, you know, my time's mainly taken up by painting for people and getting paid for that, and doing, and you know, looking at brief-led projects and painting things I wouldn't normally paint for myself. But I don't mind doing that as well, because it's really interesting. Yeah, week by week, day by day, someone's asking me to paint something that I've never even thought about painting. So it's actually really interesting, you know. Some people have said to me in the past, "Oh, do you not think it's a bit boring that you just do that, and you know, you're not really doing your own stuff?" And I kind of go, well, it is, but it isn't at the same time. It's nice to find that balance, and to be negative about that kind of stuff, it's never really going to be good for you. So it's really nice to try and make the best of what you can. And if someone gets in touch with me and says, listen, I want you to paint me a really boring scene of just some rolling hills and flowers, you know what I mean, like you know, something like that, you know, some people might be boring. I actually find it quite interesting, and relish
separate from you. It's almost like it's something new out of the norm, isn't it? And you can maybe use an aspect of that later in your own work that you wouldn't necessarily have chance of done to experiment beforehand. Maybe.
I mean, this is, in a way, like, this is why I do a lot of kind of what people class as street art these days, which is a silly term, really. Like I call myself a mural artist or a muralist, because you know, like, it doesn't matter where I'm painting. We're always doing the same thing, really. But yeah, like I remember years ago, I got asked to do a mural for the council in Levenshulme, and they specifically said we want, you know, like rolling hills, flowers, trees, animals. It was mainly for the kids in that area. It was an old bridge, an old train bridge, and you know, it was the first time that I'd been asked to do that kind of thing, and I thought, well, I'll do it because, you know, it's a job, you know, but it's not necessarily something that I like to paint. But that is the job that transformed me as an artist, because I actually try and paint. I had to try and paint realism with a spray can, basically, and I couldn't really. I'd never really done that before. A lot of graffiti is you know, like block colours, a bit of shading here and there, quite graphic in it.
Quite suggestive, and from far away it can't. Yeah,
exactly. So this project, this commission was totally different, and it was from that I started painting other things, you know, and actually being interested in painting things that most people didn't paint with spray paint, and creating what we class as a mural rather than a graffiti piece, you know. And then I started mixing them all together and doing, you know, like graffiti pieces with what you normally class as kind of murals within them. And then all my graffiti started becoming a bit more realistic, and you know, I just looking at form and shadow and shape and the way that light affects things. All of that it came from painting this one commission. And then that's pushed me to where I am today, to be painting, you know, stuff like this that you see behind me, you know, and actually wanting to paint different things, not just painting graffiti letters, you know, actually expanding my mind a little bit, and wanting to try new challenges and paint new imagery, whereas a lot of graffiti artists will just paint their graffiti letters, and that's it. And sometimes a lot of them will think it's really lame to paint, you know, birds or flowers and stuff like that, but you've got to remember there's a lot of like negative people, not just in the graffiti world, but in the art world in general. And you know, like they will do what they want to do, and everything else is not cool. You know what I mean? But you can just open your mind a little bit and just appreciate everything. Yeah. Then I think, you know, like painting and art in general becomes a lot more interesting. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I'm at these days. I'll paint one thing one day that's totally different to the next thing, but if you look on a lot of people's Instagrams, they only paint the same thing over and over again, and that's great. You know, that's great, because you then become known for being that specific person that paints that specific thing. But I'm a bit, once again, as I said earlier on,
with the way you work.
Yeah, you know, it's up and down, like, and I think sometimes people may think, oh well, I don't really like that. You know what I mean? I like that thing he did last week, but for me, I don't really care. You know, it's like I said, it's nice to just explore new things and new ideas, and to chop and change when I want to, basically, rather than stick to the same, you know, the same format of the same things all the time. So I've
got a last couple of questions, because we're probably gonna
it's going to be a 3-hour interview, not a 10-minute one.
we're already out nearly 20 minutes probably for that one, but there is some important ones that I just want to ask you. We'll try and build them into one. Gallery art and graffiti, street art, would you say they're in the same ballpark?
Discussion with graffiti artists. A lot of graffiti artists don't think graffiti belongs in a gallery, you know, because it's naturally painted outside, and it, you know, it's rooted in the outside as well. But I think that anything can be brought into a gallery. I don't really, to be honest, like I think.
Just keep it fluid. Things inside can go outside, and vice versa.
Yeah. For myself, the only issue that I get is, like, I don't paint on a small scale. So, like, if I was ever going to put anything in a gallery, then it'd have to be massive, you know. So, you know, I haven't got the patience to paint on a small scale. But yeah, essentially, like, you know, it's like, as I was going to say before, like, I think graffiti, looks even better sometimes indoors. You know, say if you got a canvas and you actually did some graffiti on it, made it look really like rustic in a way, and give it, you know, like, just made it look like it was old and weathered and worn, and, you know, like you've taken a part of the street and put it inside. For me, I think that was even more interesting than it would outside, because you totally juxtaposing the image with the environment, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. Right, we'll find out a little bit more about you that's completely different to, you know, your artwork, and also maybe give someone to have a look at while they're in lockdown or something. But do you have a favourite film at all?
Like, if anything, like, I'd probably say, as a teen, you know, I watched Quadrophenia when I was a teenager, and that really kind of like made me just change you know, like started thinking about like the underground rather than the mainstream. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that kind of like I started skating and moved away from being so mainstream in my way of you know, looking and thinking. And yeah, Quadrophenia is a really like eye-opening film just because of you know, like it was all about you know, a section of society basically. I mean, if you're looking at like street arty graffiti stuff, there's a film called Style Wars, Style and then Wars, and that's like one of the original graffiti documentaries. I must have watched that probably, I don't know, like 300 times or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I used to put it on when I was drawing. So if anyone's interested or wants to learn a little bit about graffiti and its roots and the people that were pivotal to the culture, yeah, like watch Style Wars basically. That I'd say, like, if anything, if I've played anything the most, that's the film I've played the most.
I recently watched one called Sticker. It was done about sticker art. I was really interested in that and how people from the US send their stickers through the post and vice versa, and looking at
it's a whole it's a whole thing, isn't it? You know, I used to do a lot of. I used to put thousands. Yeah, I used to go under the guise of 30 DZ, and like, honestly, like people made Flickr groups, you know. Then they used to follow all my artwork, and I had like it was a character basically that I'd made, and I put thousands up, like so many. So I kind of like have roots in that old like the street arty sticker world, you know what I mean? I kind of dip in and out of like, you know, spray painting, stickers, wheat pasting, just whatever I can do, you know, that's not the same thing over again, basically.
You mentioned that you were maybe doing some skating. Have you got any other talents? Are you skating, or is it or BMX?
Yeah, I mean, one of my other ones. I wasn't exactly like you know, I was good at it, but not like amazing at it, you know what I mean? But I mean, you know, rollerblading, that is not skateboarding, and that's how I got into graffiti, because, you know, graffiti,
they go hand in hand, don't they?
Like skating, BMXing, rollerblading. Most graffiti artists will have done one of those sports, you know, in their time.
Do you ever go out in Manchester much? Do you go for a drink or a restaurant? Have you got a favourite place at all?
Not really these days, but, you know, like in my mid-20s to like mid-30s, I'd say, like we did a lot. Well, yeah, I was going to say, like, these days I'm mainly painting the places that are opening.
The shut when you have to go there.
Yeah, a lot of bars and restaurants. I don't know. I think if I was going to go in Manchester at the moment, I'd probably go to NQ64, the retro games place. Down underneath Affleck's Palace. Like, I painted all of that, but that's not why. Like, it's just a really cool concept. They've got like so many computer games down there, and just having a beer and having a social time and playing games with people. It's just a really interesting concept. I'd rather do that than go and sit in a pub or a bar and actually just talk a little element of competition, or, you know, something fun to do together. So I reckon.
I like the neon sign. It's got a pink neon sign. I knew what it's almost like down a little alleyway. So I was going to do a painting of that one.
Yeah. And that's what it's supposed to be, like a dive bar almost, you know, like it's one of those you don't know about that when you see, you're like, oh, right, well, what's this all about, you know? And that little sign is really interesting. It draws people in, doesn't it? But, you know, aesthetic painting wise, it's, you know, like maybe at night just to paint that with the neon glow, it's just like a romanticized kind of image, isn't it? So I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, no, definitely. Did you give away some paintings for some children or something recently? I know you did that.
Yeah. This all stems from the arena attack, really, from doing that big piece of artwork. It made me realize how important it is just to give back to people and to be positive, you know. And I did get a few negative comments about that piece, people thinking that I was trying to, like, you know, make myself famous over people, you know, like passing away and stuff, and as I always say, like, you know, I got asked to do that and I really couldn't say no to it, you know. So I did it, and as I said, it just made me realize how important it is to be positive and to not be so cynical about things. So since then, I have tried my hardest when I have time to just do things that are nice for people. So I think last year I think I raised nearly about £90,000 just giving paintings to charity auctions. And once again, I don't want to sound like I'm bigging myself up or blowing my own trumpet. It's just what I did, you know, like some of those paintings only take like 3 hours to paint. And if I've got 3 hours to paint, then I'll do it, you know, because once again, I'm obsessed with painting and that's what I like doing. Shame on my wife who has to look after the 2 kids while I'm doing that. But anyway, like I said, it's just that's just what I felt like doing, just giving something back to the community basically. And if you do that and people are interested in what you've got, then why not? And this recent
it's not a chore, is it? At the end of the day,
no, it's not exactly. And yeah, it's just really nice to be able to actually do something positive for people, especially because I'm always wrapped up in my own world a lot of the time. I don't like when I'm doing this kind of stuff. I'm not like in a team of people, unless I employ people, which I do sometimes, but not always. And it's just nice to actually engage with other people and just to kind of like send that energy out basically and feel it coming back as well. You know what I mean? It's just something that I've tried to do as much as possible. And the one you're talking about. The recent one, I set up this competition where the kids have to draw their own design, send it in to me, and we pick some winners. And that's once again just because of what's happening with all this virus stuff. I'm just jumping on the bandwagon of everyone doing things that are positive online, just to try and create some kind of positivity. And once again, to give kids something to do while they're off, basically. But it got to the point where I knew this had happened. I couldn't just pick 3 winners. And everyone else get nothing. So I've ended up doing it's only about 25 canvases, but I've ended up hand drawing 25 canvases plus the 3 winners. We're going to have bigger ones and sending them all out to people basically because I just you know what I mean. I just felt like I didn't want anyone missing out on losing
out. Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
Obviously you can't do that every time you run a competition, but it's nice. We've got a little bit of extra time at the moment, so it's just nice to do something really positive for people, and those kids, they'll have those for the rest of their lives, basically.
Water-based spray paints. You ever use them? Are they good for people to use?
Yeah, water-based stuff. It just takes a bit longer to use. You've got to wait for a bit longer for it to dry because with spray paint,
the aerosol dries straight away.
Yeah. The whole point of spray paint is you can use it quickly, and that's why I like it. It layers up into you can pretty much put one colour on top of another straight away. But water-based stuff, it takes a bit longer to apply. It's not always as good when it comes out of the nib, so you won't always get the really fine lines that you can get with spray paint. But in general, I think really we need to shift towards using it more. It costs more, and that's one of the problems for a lot of people at the moment because they can't always afford it. You only get it in small cans a lot of the time, and it costs more than. But really, environmentally, it's important to try and use as much of that as possible. So and also I do workshops working with kids, not so much these days, but if I did another workshop, I think I'd just say, look, we're using water-based because I hate the thought of young people, even though we wear respirators. I hate the thought of young people still maybe breathing it in here and there. It's good for you to breathe it in, and I do use a respirator. I mean, I've got a blocked nose and polyps, and that might be because of there was a photo same place of 2 people, one of my mates and another friend who I don't know so well, and they were both spraying the wall, and the photo was taken from side on, and the sun was in the background. One of my mates has got a mask on, and the other lad hasn't. And because the light's shining through the shot, you can see the aerosol in the air, and it's just like smoke, you know what I mean? So this lad's spraying away, but you can't see it when you're in front of it because obviously it's the particles are so small, it just goes off. So most people don't realise how much particle vapor they're actually breathing in. I used to do workshops. I used to do them in PRUs, pupil referral units. And so the kids were really hard to reach young people, not always listening to us, not really behaving a lot of the time. And none of them really used to like wearing the masks that we gave them, the big respirator masks, which is understandable. But, they'd be like, I'm not wearing my mask. And I'd just be like, all right, tell you what, go and get me a cup, plastic cup. Right. There you go. Here's a cup. And then I'd spray the spray paint in it until it became liquid. And then I go, right, drink that.
And they'd be like, no.
What you doing? You're mad. And I was like, that's what you're doing. You're like, when you're breathing this vapor in, eventually it all comes together as liquid, So you're just drinking it. Like, you're breathing it, but you're drinking it at the same time. Oh, right. Okay. And then they put most of the time they put their masks on because they realise in a visual representation what is actually there, No,
definitely. All right, well, we'll leave it there.
Cool.
Qubek, AQA, Russell Meehan. So it's been absolutely fantastic speaking to you.
My pleasure.
And hopefully we can have a chat again. And hopefully when we're outside of lockdown, I can actually go and see you physically do some artwork. I actually might do a painting of one of your pieces in one of my paintings. You never know. Hopefully I can do that.
Well, yeah, as I always wanted to, I want to come to your exhibition, and I've always wanted to kind of meet you, because obviously we share a genuine love of each other's work. So it's it'd be good. I think when this lockdown ends, a lot of people are going to be connected with more people, and we already are.
Hopefully,
and it's just nice that the barriers have been broke down on like online streaming apps and stuff like that, and people will hopefully be more inclined to connect with more people and just be more open with each other, So it will be interesting. We'll meet.
Right. Brilliant. It's all good. Right, I'm gonna go.
All right.
I'll catch you later.
Have a good day then, mate. I'll speak to you soon.
See you
all
later.
Right, cheers. See you in a bit.
Well, that's it, guys, for the first artist talks. Hopefully it was enjoyable. Hopefully you found it informative. Hopefully we can carry on doing these type of videos every Sunday. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. And comments are always welcome. And if you want to see any more similar videos, or you want to see some of the tutorial videos, or maybe just some of the time-lapse, then please subscribe to the channel. As always, guys, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. See you later.